I was standing in my apartment halfway through wrapping the last Christmas gift when my phone lit up with a message that stopped everything. If you're not going to babysit 4 kids, then don't even come. No hesitation, no softness, just the kind of dismissal you feel in your bones. Seconds later, my parents chimed in, agreeing, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I stared at that screen, realizing I wasn't family to them, just labor, but the part no one saw coming was what I did next. Before I tell you the rest, comment where you are listening from. My name is Emily, and for most of my life, I thought being the capable one in the family was something to be proud of. I live in Denver now, in a small apartment with a view of the city lights, the kind of place you earn piece by piece through long nights, quiet mornings, and a job that never stops demanding something from you. I work in software, which means I fix things for a living, broken code failed deployments, emergencies that wake you up before dawn. Maybe that's why my family assumed I could fix everything else too, including whatever crisis they created that week. Growing up, I learned early that Heather was the center of gravity in our house. She was the eldest, the one with the loud laugh and the endless needs rides, money, favors, reassurance. When she had her first baby, our parents acted like her exhaustion was a holy burden everyone else should help carry. By the time she had 4, it wasn't a request anymore. It was tradition. And every tradition apparently required my participation. Even back then, I could feel the difference. If Heather forgot something, Mom would step in. If I forgot something, Mom would sigh and say, "You're usually more responsible than this." If Heather needed help, Dad rearranged his schedule. If I needed help, Dad reminded me that I was grown and independent. There was no anger in any of it, just a quiet expectation that I would hold the edges of the family together so Heather never had to. Maybe that's why the Christmas trip mattered to me more than I admitted. I'd spent months planning at 8 flights, a lakeside cabin, for the entire week, a few small surprises. I thought maybe, just maybe, this year could feel different. Something warm, something shared, something that didn't revolve around what I could provide. The cabin had a view of the frozen water, long wooden decks, a huge stone fireplace, the kind of place families go to make memories instead of arguments. I imagined the kids running around in their matching pajamas, my parents relaxing for once, Heather laughing because she actually felt grateful. I imagined myself sitting on the couch, cocoa in hand, feeling like part of something instead of the scaffolding holding it all up. But that version of Christmas only existed in my head. Reality had a way of breaking through. The week before the trip, I drove to Heather's house to drop off a few things for the kids. Gloves, scarves, small toys to keep them entertained on the flight. When I stepped into the living room, it looked like every December of my childhood, toys everywhere, the TV, loud my parents' coats on the couch. Mom greeted me with a distracted smile. Heather barely looked up. Dad asked me to grab something from the kitchen as if I'd always worked there. I should have noticed it then. The way no one asked how I'd been, the way no one mentioned the trip or thanked me, the way the room already felt tilted in their favor. But I didn't understand what was coming until the night the group chat lit up and everything I'd planned unraveled in a single sentence. The message showed up on a Tuesday night, one of those evenings when Denver felt quieter than usual, like the whole city had pulled a blanket over itself. I had just sat down after work, still wearing the dark sweater I'd thrown on that morning, when my phone buzzed with a family group chat notification. I expected something simple, maybe Mom asking what snacks the kids would want for the trip, or Heather sending another reminder about the flight time. Instead, I opened the chat and froze. "If you're not going to babysit 4 kids, then don't even come." Heather didn't add a smiley face, didn't soften it. Just a single line dropped into the silence of my apartment, like a stone hitting water, clean, heavy, unmistakable. I reread it, waiting for the punchline. Some joke. A follow-up explaining she was stressed and didn't mean it like that. But before I could finish processing, Mom replied, "Your sister's right. You're the only one who's free." Then Dad, as if he'd been standing by, ready to reinforce the verdict. "Christmas is about helping family. Don't make things difficult." 3 messages, less than 30 seconds apart. The same old rhythm, the same alliance I'd grown up under. The worst part wasn't the words, it was how natural they seemed to them, how automatic. Like they'd already decided I wasn't a guest on this trip. I was the help. My thumb hovered over the screen. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, the kind that doesn't come from anger alone, but from recognition. This wasn't new. This was every birthday they skipped, because Heather needed something. Every weekend I spent watching her kids while she took a break. Every holiday where I bought groceries, cooked meals, cleaned up, and still felt like an afterthought. I typed deleted, typed again. So just so I understand, if I don't babysit, I'm not allowed to come to Christmas. I stared at the typing bubble, a little white dot flickering in and out like a heartbeat. Then Heather answered, "Correct. We don't need someone who just eats and leaves." My hands went cold, not shaking cold. Like something inside me finally shut off, a door clicking closed. For a moment I thought about all the things I could say, reminding them who booked the cabin, who bought the flights, who carried this trip from idea to reality while they barely remembered the dates. But that wasn't the point anymore. This wasn't about the trip. It never had been. It was about the role they'd carved out for me years ago and expected me to keep playing without question. The apartment was so quiet I could hear the soft hum of the heater kicking on. Outside, the streetlights glowed against the snow, and in that stillness, something inside me steadied, calm, sharp, undeniable. I put my phone down for 10 full minutes, let the anger settle, let the clarity rise. When I picked it back up, I didn't argue. I made a decision. When I lifted my phone again, the screen was still bright with their messages lines that no longer hurt, so much as revealed everything I had refused to see. My family didn't invite me to Christmas. They summoned me to work it, to serve, to fill a role I never agreed to play. And suddenly, all the warmth I had, imagined the cabin flickering with firelight, the kids laughing in the snow, my parents relaxing without worrying about money, felt like a story I had written for people who didn't bother reading the first page. I scrolled through the bookings, 8 plane tickets, the lakeside cabin with its wooden deck and stone fireplace, the prepaid activities the kids would have loved. I had planned an entire week down to the smallest detail, trying to give my family a Christmas they'd remember. But they didn't see that. They never saw me at all. The turning point wasn't anger, not really. It was the quiet shift that happens when you stop trying to earn a place you already paid for. When you realize the respect you're begging for isn't coming and maybe never was. My fingers barely hesitated as I typed. Cool then, my $50 $1,000 isn't showing up to Christmas either. I hit send. The message sat there blue and unblinking. A small sentence steady and calm like a door closing with a soft click. I could imagine the moment they read it. The confusion first, then the slow dawning of what that number meant. $50,000. Flights, cabin, events, every part of the trip they had taken for granted. The group chat went silent. Heather, who usually filled conversations with demands and instructions, didn't type. Mom didn't rush to soften anything. Dad didn't offer one of his patronizing reminders about family duty. Just silence thick enough to feel through a screen. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the street below. Snow layered the rooftops in clean, quiet lines. Cars moved slowly, headlights glowing in the dark. Somewhere down the block, someone was hanging lights, their ladder creaking against the cold. It felt strange, almost peaceful, to realize I wasn't obligated to fix this moment. I didn't need to soothe them or justify myself. I didn't need to explain what $50,000 meant to me or what I intended to do next. I sat back down, opened the booking app, and hovered my fingertip over the cancel reservation button. A week ago, I would have hesitated, worried about disappointing everyone. Tonight, the air felt clear. They told me not to come, so I made sure I wouldn't. I pressed cancel. The cancellation confirmations came in one by one, quiet dings, echoing through my apartment like tiny verdicts. First the flights, then the cabin, then the prepaid activities. All of it reversed within minutes. The money routed back to my account, the entire trip collapsing as easily as it had been built. I didn't send the screenshots immediately. I let them sit in a folder on my phone while I washed a few dishes, lit a candle, and let the heater run. The silence in the group chat hadn't broken yet, and somehow that silence was its own confession. They understood the weight of my message. They just weren't sure how to respond now that I wasn't bending. Finally, Heather typed, "What do you mean you're $50,000? What are you talking about?" The way she phrased it shocked confusion. Not an ounce of humility told me everything. She'd assumed the Christmas trip was effortless for me, like I'd pulled it from thin air. She had never considered that I worked for it, planned, it paid for it, that I had given them something precious. I uploaded the first screenshot, 8 flight cancellations, full refund. Heather read it within seconds. "Emily, what is this?" The caps lock felt like a scream. Mom appeared next. "You didn't pay for everyone's tickets. Stop causing drama." I added the second screenshot, the lakeside cabin cancellation. The amount $34,000 displayed in bold. This time the typing bubble flickered and disappeared, flickered again, then vanished completely. Mom didn't reply. Dad did. "Why would you do that? We were all counting on this trip, counting on it. It was almost funny. They hadn't even thanked me for planning it. I sent the last screenshot, the canceled events, the ones the kids had been so excited about. Refund processed. Balance returned. And then I typed 2 words that felt colder than the snow outside. I canceled. The silence that followed wasn't like before. It wasn't stunned or confused. It was panicked. A shifting of ground, a scrambling. Heather was first. "You can't be serious. The kids were looking forward to this. You ruined their Christmas." I leaned back in my chair, letting the heat of the radiator warm my ankles, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilt coil itself in my stomach. I felt clarity. "I didn't ruin Christmas," I wrote. "You told me I wasn't welcome unless I babysat. I simply removed what wasn't welcome." Mom jumped back in. "You're being petty. Babysitting is not a big deal. You're single, you have time. Why would you take away Christmas from your own family?" Her words were familiar. I'd heard versions of them my whole life. "You have more time. You don't need help. Your needs come second. You're responsible. You can handle it." Except this time, something inside me pushed back. "I'm not the family's free childcare," I replied. "I'm your daughter, and you made it clear that doesn't matter to you unless I'm useful." Dad's message came next. "Let's all calm down. We can still fix this. Rebook everything and stop being dramatic." That line, "stop being dramatic," was a match dropped into gasoline. For years, anytime I had a feeling, a boundary, a single moment of exhaustion, Dad had a similar response. As if my emotions were inconveniences, as if my discomfort was something I needed to apologize for. So I wrote, "Fix it yourselves." 3 dots appeared, Heather typing, Mom typing, Dad typing, but none of the messages came through. A family trying to coordinate their outrage and failing. Then Heather sent a wall of text. "We can't rebook anything. Prices doubled overnight. The cabin is gone. The flights are gone. Why would you do this to us?" There it was, the truth they were circling around. I had been valuable because I made their lives easier. I paid for things they couldn't afford. I lifted weights they couldn't carry. When I withdrew, the whole structure collapsed. "Because you told me not to come," I answered. So I listened. Mom tried a different angle. "This is why we don't tell you things. You're too emotional. You act without thinking." I stared at that message for a long moment. Not because it hurt, because of how deeply inaccurate it was. Everything I'd done had been a long time coming, and they didn't recognize any of it. I thought about it for years. I finally wrote. I thought about every time I helped, every time I said yes, every time I rearranged my life, because you needed something. And all it took to erase all that was one night and one message telling me I'm only welcome if I'm useful. That's not family. Heather sent another message shorter this time. "So what now? You're just not coming home. You're spending Christmas alone." Her tone had changed, not angry but unsettled. For the first time, she sounded unsure. "No," I wrote. "I'm spending Christmas with people who see me as a person, not a resource." And that was the end of it. No one replied after that. The typing bubbles never returned. I set my phone face down on the table, walked into the bedroom, and zipped up the suitcase I'd packed for the trip. I took out the clothes and folded them back into my drawers one by one until the suitcase lay empty. The strange thing wasn't the sadness. It was the relief. Like taking off a coat I didn't realize had grown heavy. The next morning, I blocked the group chat notifications. Then I drove across Denver to a friend's place where warmth spilled from the windows, and someone handed me a mug of something hot before I even sat down. Their living room smelled like pine and fresh cookies. No demands, no conditions, just welcome. And for the first time in a long time, Christmas felt like mine. Christmas morning in Denver felt quieter than any holiday I could remember. No buzzing phone, no last-minute demands, no list of tasks disguised as family tradition. Instead, I woke up on my friend's couch to the smell of cinnamon rolls and the sound of soft laughter drifting in from the kitchen. It was simple, ordinary, and it felt like someone had opened a door I didn't know existed. We spent the day cooking, playing board games, walking through the cold air with our coats zipped to our chins. No one asked me to fix anything. No one told me what I owed them. Every conversation felt light, like breathing without weight on my ribs. At one point, my friend handed me a small gift, nothing expensive, just thoughtful, a little notebook with a soft cover. Inside the front page, she'd written, "For the life you get to choose." Meanwhile, my family's chaos unfolded without me. A cousin texted privately to say the last-minute flights were triple the original price and sold out within hours. The cabin was long gone. The kids were disappointed, the adults irritated, and every plan they assumed would be waiting for them had evaporated. Some relatives whispered that it wasn't fair to blame me. Others said it was long overdue. But I didn't gloat. The truth was simpler. Peace doesn't always look like winning. It sometimes looks like walking away before you burn. By the time the lights dimmed that night, I knew something had shifted permanently. I hadn't just canceled a trip. I had canceled a role I never wanted. A month later, Heather finally texted. No attitude this time, no demands. Just if you want to come next Christmas, you won't have to babysit. I'm sorry. I read it, let the screen dim, and set the phone aside. Some doors don't need slamming, they just stay closed once you step through. And if any part of my story feels familiar, tell me where you're listening from. Share what you would have done, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.